Tell him to just get out there. Nothing to talk about. Back up your record and cut him out. So looking at me, I am simply shy. Cut it out, there's enough. I can't go on no more now. Cut it out, there's enough. I want him out. I want him out that door now.
When past cases like Smith and Grady, ex partes, that you can't stay in the Navy because of sexuality. Like Sia, I had a thick skin, but the world is pulling too much and I snapped within. The physical pain pales in comparison to the emotional condition. If you try to own it and hold it down, you should have left that shit behind. This is no time for a clown. It's funny to see how unforgiving life is. How do you fit into a world that aspires to be a scene boy when you want to be a god? Spend your day searching for a ceiling for a void that can never be filled by emotional steroids. A heart full of water, drowning in addiction from one body to another, but you don't puff those words these days. You're all about the coke life. Less calories in red eye. I'm not talking extrinsically, I'm talking about those hateful words that lie intrinsically. More specifically, you don't fit the bill of the gay community.
Is it time for some more?
Expressing what made him fall into that masculine category. Something expressed all the time in the media and all over Grindr. I almost think it was safe for me in Narnia. So I back up like I live in Siberia because you categorize me more coldly and militantly than Russia. Go ahead, raise your eyebrows, but at this point I couldn't give a fuck. You see, our denial has gone far too far. It's funny to see those who are discriminated against on the grounds of sexuality, not others on the grounds of gender identity. The hypocrisy is almost as great as that for my own ethnic community. And don't be surprised that I'm against events like London Pride. At the surface, it's all smiles, and at the base, it's a clear divide. I'm not trying to be snide, but shit like this has no upside. I'm looking for integration, not apartheid. So how about you represent me at Pride 2019? You see, growing up on TV, I never saw my face, and the few times I did, it was in handcuffs and chains. I'm a minority in a minority. I am blue and yellow. I create green. Should it really be an issue that I like a taste of plantain, believe in Jesus Christ, and I love to jam, to bring? But these questions have created a vacuum of confusion that consumes me, so what happened to us? And we can't blame it all on those today who are shame and mistrust.
I'm a getaway to these spots that I have for another day. Was it worries they won't keep me down? Watch my feet as they hit the ground. Oh, you can take away any pain that I had when I hold away all these types of memories.
Goodbye, goodbye.
So we've got an amazing cohort of beautiful performers for you tonight. We have some speakers as well who are, how do I put this, experts in their fields. Yes, I love the word experts. They know, they're living their best lives. So, the first person I want to call up tonight is Jarek, who is going to talk. Yes, he is. He didn't know that was going to happen, but nonetheless, he's got his drink, he's going to live life and come up. And he's going to talk to us about hate crimes. There you go, baby.
Hi, my name is Jarek. I'm from Poland. I've been living in London for 13 years. When I first came here, mostly because Poland, it's shit to be gay in Poland, you know. It's the more east you go in Europe, the worse it gets. So I came to London and everything seemed to be okay, you know. We've got all the legal rights, we have anti-discrimination, you know, laws, and yet, there's still an LGBT hate crime happening. Last week, I've added to the sad statistics myself. I was beaten up by some homophobic fags in Vauxhall when I was leaving the bar. And, you know, I thought that I practiced and perfected all the ways to not show that I'm gay. To not appear queer, to, you know, play it safe when on the streets, you know. And, you know, you think that in London you have Pride, you've got all those lovely celebrations, you know. Pride stopped being a protest at some point, started being a carnival, started being a place for fun. And what's happened to me last week made me read up a little bit more about sad statistics which we have regarding LGBT hate crimes. So, according to Stonewall report in 2017, 1 in 5 LGBT people have experienced a hate crime or incident because of their sexual orientation in the last 12 months. 2 in 5 trans people have experienced a hate crime incident because of their gender identity. And 4 in 5 anti-LGBT hate crimes go unreported. And you know, when you read about this, you feel, hold on. There is an official part which says, you know, everyone is happy, everyone is, you know, partying, you know, it's supposed to be lovely and you know, colors of the rainbow and everyone is accepting. But then you go out with your mates on Thursday night in Vauxhall and then some thugs decide to just beat you up because you're gay. So I had 2 choices. I could become a victim, I could just sit at home, hide away. But after that event, I've experienced so much love, support, and encouraging messages from lots of people who are here, lots of my friends all over the world, and I felt like I need to speak about it because we're not safe and equal until we're all safe and equal. You know, that when I was speaking to my friends, it seemed like each and every of them, at least once in their life, or once in the last 12 months, experienced something. My friend Jurek was beaten up in Vauxhall in August last year. My friend Peter, who lives just up the road, he was on a bus and 5 thugs decided he's too gay and too queer to, you know, to share the same space with them. Another of my friends, Tommy, he's an amazing performer, drag queen. He was wearing his makeup on the bus, and within few months ago, he was also spat on and called out names. But these are just the soft stuff. So this is soft stuff. We know about gay couples having acid thrown into their faces.
gym, if you're gonna work, bounce, bounce. If you're in the club, if you're in the car, if you're in your bed, bounce, bounce. If you're in the sauna, if you're in the gym, if you're gonna work.
According to Metropolitan Police, the amount of hate crime which is reported doubled within the last 12 months. And where am I going with this? I think we're celebrating 50 years after the Stonewall riots, we are celebrating 50 years of Gay Liberation Front, and yet people's minds are taking way longer to change. And I think there is so much more to be done. I'm being Polish, I've experienced a lot of that back home. When I came here, I started a Polish LGBT support group, Polish Rainbow, which I'm kind of shamelessly promoting with my t-shirt tonight. We're trying to create a safe space for Polish migrants in London who, even in their own migrant communities, can be excluded and can be treated as a second class. But I think it takes time, it takes a while to change people's minds. So it's important to speak up about it. When you see online abuse of, or homophobic, transphobic comments, just call people out, report it. If you see gay people or gay, lesbian, trans, queer people treated unfair in your workplace, at your school, at your university, in your local business, call it out. Because if we don't change one person at a time, if we don't speak about it every single day, the law can change. The law can give us, they can give us marriage, they can give us equality laws, but if we don't change it on the basic human level, change will not happen by itself. So I'd like to thank the members of the Gay Liberation Front who are sitting right there. I really think thank you so much for starting an amazing movement 50 years ago, but the struggle continues. And the struggle is real, and as I said, we're not equal and safe until we're all equal and safe. Thank you so much.
So, the next person we have up, that was a little bit of a speech. The next person we have up is Alexis Gregory. He's a fully white performer, producer. His plays include Slap, Safe, Sex Crimes, and Right Act, which is an amazing piece of art. And his work has been performed at the West End, the East End, on Channel 4, in Stratford, The Glory. So, without further ado, I'm going to let you explain Riot Act, because I think you will do it justice that it needs.
Thank you, Nash. Aren't we so lucky to have Nash as our host? I was creative. That was the start of the isolation that goes way back. I thought, God, where do they go? I went to a toilet in Liverpool Street and I thought, God, what do they do? I didn't have a clue. And I stood there and I came out, I was shit scared. And this guy followed me out and he said, do you want to go and I said, well, I don't know, I've never done it before. And he said, well, come with me. So we went round the back of Liverpool Street, because there were all these little alleyways around there. And then after, he said, well, did you like that? And I said, yeah, I think I did. Oh, you want to talk about drag? Okay, we'll keep to the point. I remember the first time I saw a man in drag. I went up to Chepstow, this gay pub, and I thought, oh, that's a woman. And then I thought, oh, no, that's a transvestite. Now, that was for sex, specifically. She was dressed up for sex in a gay bar full of gay men. Didn't really work for her, never mind. Now, you see, you're talking about drag. Drag, to me, at the time, was what you saw up the Black Cap. The trollettes doing their drag act, lip-syncing and bitching and being evil to each other with some of the misogyny that went on. Now, I wasn't coming from that. My friends were living in Westbourne Grove. This was the 70s, before the property boom, and Notting Hill was a dump. I moved in with them. Well, that was too much. It was a squat. There was 4 of us there, living on the top floor. We had 2 rooms, a shower and a kitchen. Below us was 2 dykes. I think they eventually had a boy. Below them was the Hells Angels. They had coffins and everything. And below them was the prostitute. So that was 138 Westbourne Park Grove. Around the corner from us was Stuart and Betty and John, and a whole slew of queens that lived in a commune. There was what Betty and Stuart were doing, which was much more radical drag. Now, I was 22, going on 23, and I'd never done drag at this point. And to see those queens getting on a bus, a whole gaggle of them being themselves and screaming and shouting and having a laugh, and seeing the reaction of other people. Some queens were into wearing lipstick and eyeshadow and keeping their beard, and that was radical, to see a queen with a green beard. So yes, it was drag, but we were stretching it out to androgyny and stuff we could pick up on the street. Betty had a good dress. She put tea-strainers all around the bottom. That, to me, was the start of radical drag. And it's repeated itself since they leave Bowery in the 80s onwards. The club kids in America, Michael Alec. I was living in New York in the 90s, and what a revival. The drag, it was androgyny, it was fashion. The RuPaul thing came later. But it's on the ground among us, the people. We're all going around, somebody sees it, puts it on the telly, and every 10 years there's the new one. Now there's people like Johnny Woo and East End drag, where it's okay to have a beard, hairy legs, and a pig nose. Oh, you spoke to someone who was at the Stonewall. Oh, the queens were pissed off that night. I do a monologue from Jimmy Camici from the Hot Peaches. Can you spare any change for a dying queen? Miss June picks up a chair and swung it, and the whole place started screaming and shouting and yelling. And the queens were getting their faces scratched, and you know what that means. And the next thing you know, we all wound up in the tomb. They busted up our head. They plain old busted us. And that was the beginning of gay liberation in the village, in New York, in the world. That was written about Marsha P. Johnson. She was there. Gay Lib had come over from America. People coming back from the US saying, we're going to start something new. Being gay in London in the 70s when Gay Lib came was like, oh wow. The first Gay Lib meetings were in All Saints Church, Notting Hill. But sometimes you feel very vulnerable. It's like, I want to get out of here, let me find somewhere to recover. They used to say that in the commune. You can't be out all the time, because if you're doing this on the street, you need to go back to your space with your people to calm down, because it's a hell of a lot what you're giving. I was in Miami once. It was after a curfew, after a big hurricane, and there was me and this other queen, the Baroness, walking 2 or 3 blocks back to the hotel, and there was people going past in their cars, and they had guns. And I thought, oh my God, okay, we're getting there, aren't we, Baroness? Just strutting along and ignoring everything. And just by the hotel, this guy shouts out, faggot! And we just ignore him and go up to the door, and he shouts out, faggot! And the only other word he shouted out was fucked. And I said, I don't fight. Even here, there was that little corner in Old Street, and I said, I've got to get a cab, I'm too old now. It's hard to be yourself and always be out. I feel like I'm always being clocked for what I'm saying or doing. Like the other night, I was wearing this fantastic neon shirt and these purple boots, and I got a lot of looks. And I thought, oh, I'm putting myself on the line here. Sometimes I think that's my part in the movement, and sometimes it will kick you in the face. Sometimes I don't want to wear makeup, sometimes I do want to dress casual, sometimes I do want to be just like everyone else and drift through. I'm so obviously a man. If I get on the tube the way I'm doing drag, I'm getting it. I mean, the youngsters can get away with it, but I want to live, I want to survive, I want to live to stay it. I get that all the time. Do you get that all the time? Do you get that all the time? Do you get it all the time? Black people get it, Indian people get it. It's not the paranoia, it's there. Do you realise I'm 67 and I'm still getting it? And sometimes, as an older person, you couldn't give a fucking shit. Because all my life, I've tried to be part of everything else, tried to say, I'm like you, we have relationships like you, we're not much different to you, but I'm sort of going the other way now. Saying, we are different. I'm not aping heterosexuals. We are different. Really heavy talking, isn't it? It's just that you get emotional when you say things. I can't give you the script. I can't give you the answers. Everything was living in the moment. To cross the border of East Berlin in nail varnish and be noticed by people. I wasn't looking for the future. I didn't think I'd be here now. Do you want a cup of tea? Let's have a herbal tea. Oh, you want a normal tea? Okay, a regular tea. Next question. Nowadays, when I see queens in the street in their drag, I think it's fantastic, but I get scared for them. That night I met you at the Vauxhall Tavern, there was a whole slew of them in walking around in dresses. They came to see my show, they're penniless. The young ones are gorgeous. As I get older, I notice their youth and beauty so much more because I'm older. Sometimes they'll say, did that really happen at the Stonewall? And I'll say, yeah, that's what I told you.
Having your own idea. My lay's been stuck. I've never been afraid to switch on me. And they show me love for being original. I gotta make the rules, shake the rules. Baby, man, they gonna get it. You gotta get up off that red line. Ain't nobody tell you can't do. Shut me down automatic. And I guarantee no fall in line. What you want, girl? What you want, girl? What you want, girl? Yeah, baby, baby. What you want, girl? Yeah. A brand new movement. It started with a conversation in a cafe. It's all about love and how we never gonna let price get in the way. When you're giving it, it's never what you say, it's saying what you do. Wanna show me love, keep the conversation going.
Then John from down the road said, Rupert's dead. He was lying in bed, upright with his mouth open. They'd called the ambulance, but the ambulance wouldn't take him away. Why? Because he had AIDS. No one knew what it was, no one knew what to do, how to heal it. If you had it, if you didn't have it, you weren't given information. Did it travel by air? Eventually, we worked out it was in blood and fluids, but it took a long time for that to get into the consciousness. Diva Dan definitely got it in New York. Seeing him, I thought, oh my God, he's gonna die. I went to visit, I thought, oh my God, he's getting worse. He was sat there watching the telly like this. And you'd come in the room, and you'd completely... So I went in front of the telly, hello, Dan. He was still just completely... He knew what was going on. He didn't want to know about anything else. His mother was an old nurse and she knew how to keep him alive, but he didn't want to live, he was over it. His mother was from Newcastle, and one day she went up to have a weekend off and she said to the father, whatever you do, don't let him go to the hospital. So of course what happened? Danny's coughing because he used to get pneumonia. The doctor said go to the hospital. He went to the hospital, he slept there one night, the next day he was dead. Danny knew. He was a Scorpio. All about death. Death was not an issue. Oh, you're a Scorpio. Got the sting too, ain't ya? Danny wanted to go. That last year was horrible for him being looked after by his mother. He didn't want that. Some of these powerful people could have carried on. Strong queens who spoke out. Yes, there's a generation living and surviving, and it's great. We've got the equal rights, but we've got to carry on. And that's another thing. We need a fucking museum, and we need it in town. Somewhere like Trafalgar Square. We need a museum to explain all this shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I gotta get up off that bed. Ain't nobody tell you what you can't do. Just get down automatic. I guarantee that I'll fall in line. But you won't go. What you won't go. The breakdown. Here we go. I gotta break it down, break it down. I gotta break it down, break it down. I gotta break it down, break it down. Give it up for my dancers, everyone.
It's important for me to do what you're doing. That's what I've got to do, write it down. As long as you get what you want. Are you going to try and put this on somewhere? Are you going to do the voice? I think you should, and push the performance, really go for it. You can use my name. Lavinia. It's strong. But I prefer Vin. It's much more East End. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Thank you, darling. Thank you so much.
I wanna live with you till the sun's up. I wanna let you inside. Oh, heaven knows I'm tired now. Wish that I could let you love. Wish that I could let you love me. Wish that I could let you love. Wish that I could let you love me. Say what's the matter with me? What's the matter with me? Oh, I wish that I could let you love. Oh, wish that I could let you love me now. And every time it gets too real, and every time I feel like I'm sabotaging, I start running. And every time I push away, I really want to say that I'm sorry, but I say nothing. I want to stay the whole night. I want to live with you till the sun's up. I want to let you inside. Oh, heaven knows I'm trying. Hey, I wish that I could let you love me. Wish that I could let you love. Wish that I could let you love me.
So I want to say a little word about pride. There are dear, dear friends from Gay Liberation Front here, as you know, and in a moment I'm going to ask them to come up here. But I thought if I just say a little word about pride, because everybody's so fucked about pride in London. So we have Gay Liberation Front. We go on existing. We may not be what we were quite in 1970 when we started, but we go on, we're still around, and we have a message that Pride in London's committee would like to speak with us, because this year is the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, we all know that, and gay liberation starting up just days after the Stonewall riots. People saying we can't let this energy, this emotion be lost. And so the word Gay Liberation Front borrowed mainly from the Algerian Liberation Front, which everybody was very conscious of then. Again and again, just a little about that start for Gay Liberation Front. What kept getting buried was the debt we owed to BAME people, to the black movement. The people who started Gay Liberation Front in London, one was a lesbian called Beverly, and she was at the London School of Economics, and she was running for president of the Student Union in October 1970, so her slogan was Bev the Les for Prez. 1970. She now lives with her wife and her daughter, well, their daughter, in Amsterdam. And Bev went, a Gay Liberation Front person now and then, she went to the island of Lesbos. She tells me it's normally called now the island of Lesbos, with her wife to help 2 years ago with the refugee crisis. The Syrians all coming over in the boats, thousands and thousands. The other two people, besides Bev the Les for Prez, were Aubrey Walter, who now lives in Spain with his partner of those days, and also Bob Mellors. And Bob was, he was non-binary before anybody else that I ever met was. And he was murdered in Poland by young men. He'd been getting to know young men as you would if you were a now middle-aged gay man living in Warsaw. And he got to know several young men, and nobody knows, the police wouldn't investigate. The flat was burgled and he was murdered. This is many years ago now. We're asking that a building at London School of Economics be named in his honour, because that's, Alexis, if I may say so, that's where we started, at the London School of Economics. And then indeed we moved to Notting Hill, where it became amazing. Before I ask friends up, just if I may, just another little word. I mentioned the debt we owe to Black Pride. Now, it goes like this. Bob and Aubrey were in their middle 20s, they were students, they heard there was something called Gay Liberation Front going on in New York. They got their way over there, and while they were in New York, they got an invitation. And the invitation was to the Philadelphia People's Revolutionary Convention, called by the Black Panthers. And the Black Panthers, led by Huey Newton, there were other Black Panther leaders who hated women's liberation and hated gay liberation. But Huey Newton was the one, the leader among the Black Panthers, who said, their cause is our cause. And so delegates were invited from women's liberation and gay liberation to the Philadelphia Convention, People's Revolutionary Convention of September 1970. Bob and Aubrey went. There's a description of Aubrey, who was blonde, He couldn't see a damn thing. He couldn't see his hand in front of his face. Very recent eye surgery has given him sight he's never had in his life before. So he would be sitting there with that semi-unsighted, beautiful sort of face of 24 years old with blonde curls, and they also called him the Angel, because that's how he looked. These two, Bob and Aubrey, came back from the Black Power Revolutionary Convention in Philadelphia, fired up. They had to start it here. So with Bev the Les for Prez, in October 1970, they started leafleting what was then the safe spaces in Earl's Court, semi-safe, with leaflets saying Gay Liberation Front is here. Come to the London School of Economics, room such and such. And a few people trickled in, then a few more people trickled in. Suddenly it was 50, suddenly it was 150, suddenly it was 250. Thousands came through from Italy, from France, from Scotland, from Ireland, from both parts of Ireland. Anyway, we're not asking them for anything, we're saying this is what will happen next year. We'll have a march, a 50th anniversary. It's 2 years ahead, but it's for Gay Liberation Front. So we were anarchic about dates and everything. So next year's Pride March, not this summer, but the one after, will be arranged by Gay Liberation Front with all our young friends. And we'll have a walk. We'll have no vehicles, no motorised vehicles of any kind, unless it's for somebody who needs it for medical reasons. No floats. If 200 people come, that's okay. That's about what came 50 years ago. If 2,000 people come, that's lovely. If 20,000 people come, that's lovely. If Pride in London, who have a contract, Gay Liberation Front doesn't go in for contracts. If these people who have a contract want to say, all right, we'll go with that. Pride in London in 2020 will have no float, will not be motorised, will not be adding to the diesel fumes of London, will not be inviting the corporates who won't want to come because there won't be any floats. That's what we do. Can I ask, dearly loved friends who are over there, Nettie Pollard, please come up here so everybody can. And Ted Brown. Alice Stewart here yet? I can't quite see. And I'm not going to compare, I'm just going to hand over. I think, Ted, one thing he will talk about is a couple of badges he's got. But I'm not holding it to, but if he does, you'll be amazed. And Nettie, whatever you choose.
Well, I certainly haven't prepared anything. The Gay Liberation Front was not a gay rights organisation. That really wasn't the aim. The aim was to have a better world for everybody. And that's why we went on marches, things like the anti-internment leave march, anti-internment march, the industrial relations bill, abortion marches, the Oz trial, the Miss World, and lots of others. That's because we wanted things to be better for everyone. And if you look at Surrey Pride, this year it's being sponsored by BAE Systems. And the person from Pride has described that as fab. And the people from BAE Systems say, oh, it's so marvellous, we can do diversity and bring out the best in people, and isn't it lovely? Is it? No. It's to do with having a more destructive and horrible world with weapons. That's not what LGBT people should be looking for. I think, how can we, which side are we on?
Well said, Nick.
It's the wrong side if we're going to collude with people like that. And I just wanted to say one little thing about youth group. It wasn't all male. I was 21 when I was in JLF, and so I wasn't allowed to be part of the youth group, and quite rightly. But people over 21 were allowed to go to just one meeting. So I went along to this just one meeting. And they were so well organised, and they, so political, and really had got it together. And it was not just that there were lots of females there, but there were lots of very young people there. There were a number of people who were under 16. And I think that should give us something to think about as well. What about people who are under 16? Age of consent 16, does that solve everything? And I think that gay liberation would say that it didn't. Right, okay.
Yes, hello. My name is Ted Brown. I'm one of the people who was in one of the 3 Gay Liberation Front communes that were set up back in the early 70s. There was one in Brixton, there was one in Notting Hill, and our one moved from Penge to Bounds Green. I'm going to be brief because if I really start, I could be up here for 3 days. I just want to make a connection with what Andrew was saying about how the Black Panthers work filtered into the LGBT movement. I was very lucky. I was able to come out to my mother when I was 15, back in 1965, because I knew that she would be understanding. And the reason she would be understanding was because, although Jamaican, she had gone to America, and as a black woman, had gotten involved with the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which is the organization that helped to organize the Great March on Washington that was led by Martin Luther King. What many people don't know is that the NAACP not only discussed black rights and getting rid of segregation and racism, they were about women's rights. They also discussed gay rights, partly because of an unknown hero, which you may not have heard of, but you should have, called Bayard Rustin. Now, Bayard Rustin was a black gay man back in 1964, and he was the one who actually designed the March on Washington that took place in 1963. He was openly gay, and in 1964 he made a speech saying that one day gay and lesbian people will be fighting for their rights in exactly the same way as black people were fighting for their rights back in 1963. It was a brave thing for him to do. Unfortunately, because he was openly gay, he was foisted away from the actual march that he had helped design, and J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI at that time, tried to fabricate a sexual relationship between Bayard Rustin and Martin Luther King in order to undermine the demonstration, but that didn't actually happen. But as I was saying, part of the reason I was able to come out to my mother as a gay child when I was 15 in 1965 was because I knew that she and other people in the NAACP had discussed these various issues about freedom for all people, freedom for women, freedom for gay people, freedom for the poor, freedom for everyone that deserves it. And everyone that deserves it is everyone.
Sarah!
lost in you. This is about to unfold. This is about to unfold. You, I've been feeling you. Got my heart torn into two. Think I met you on the moon. You are the reason I'm askew. If I don't get to talk to you, lately it goes my thoughts. Words emotion from my heart. Organic action on love. You made a chamber in my heart. Stars in the sky don't look like you. I envision a man so beautiful, so mystical. I found bliss in you.
I was born in the States, but I was raised mostly over here in England. And my mother had died just a few months after I came out to her in 1965, and I was with foster parents. And I was reading a Sunday newspaper, I think it was the Sunday Times, which had a very flippant article joking about the fact that men with handbags were fighting off the police in New York City. Now, I did cartwheels all around the living room when I read the article, but I had no way of meeting anyone. I didn't know where to go. I was a lone black gay man in 1965 in 1969 in Blackheath in South London. Later that year, I went to the cinema, to the Leicester Square Odeon, to see a film which many of you will have heard of, called The Boys in the Band. It was one of the first openly gay movies, and people often praise it as being revolutionary, but unfortunately I found it pretty negative. Two of the key lines in it are, "If only we didn't hate ourselves so much," and the other famous line is, "Show me a happy homosexual and I'll show you a gay corpse." This is a play by Martin Crowley, and it's been running recently in London again. Now, I went to see this film by myself in Leicester Square, and as I was leaving, I was handed a leaflet by a number of people, and they were the Gay Liberation Front, and they were demonstrating against the movie and saying it was a misrepresentation of everything, of gay life and what gay life meant. And I later, after being given the leaflet, I went to Middle Earth, where I turned up at one of the first, I think it was the third GLF meeting. It's where I met Nettie. I think I was speaking about being black and gay when Nettie came into the room. And that's also where I met my partner back in 1972. And we are still together, well, in principle. Moved into the commune. First of all, we were in Penge, as I said, and then we moved to Bounds Green. We were in competition in some ways with the more radical Notting Hill fairies and the black fairies that were in Brixton, but it was a friendly competition, and the competition was about getting other people to come out and to argue that the personal is political and that being in the closet was doing yourself in. The only way to be free was to be open about yourself and to encourage other people to be open about themselves.
Oh shit!